The bit after the ending. Chapter 69. You can't say no. 2 months later, Amy was at home in the living room with her mum and Jack helping to decorate their Christmas tree. A song called Driving Home for Christmas by a frightening-looking old man called Chris Rea was playing on the radio as she wheeled herself round the tree, draping the branches with baubles and tinsel. She could do this easily, even though she was back in her old wheelchair as it had been fixed. The wheels no longer resembled that of a broken load-lil trolley. The whole thing had been given an overhaul, and now she could guide herself round even quite a small space, like that between their Christmas tree and the wall, easily. Every year, Amy loved decorating the tree. Jack was bored of doing it. Decorating a Christmas tree is one of those things teenagers used to love doing when they were younger, but which they like to make clear to parents that they now find very boring. So he was huffing and puffing and looking at his phone when there was suddenly the sound of something being delivered through the letterbox. "Can you go and see what it is, please, Jack?" said Susie. Jack huffed and puffed and looked at his phone, which meant he didn't want to do that either. But he went out of the room anyway. "Oh, right," he shouted from the hallway in his bored voice. "It's Dad's regular Christmas card." "Oh," said Amy, "bring it in." "Oh," said Jack, "bring it in." I should make it clear that although Jack had learned some life lessons on this journey, he hadn't changed that much. Not everyone changes that much during a story. "Well, yeah, do," said Susie. "It'll be the same thing as ever," said Jack, coming into the living room. He opened the envelope. "Just Happy Christmas, Jack and Amy, on a card with some fake snow and glitter on." "Oh." "What?" said Susie. "Some tickets have fallen out." Amy wheeled herself over to them and picked them up. "They're train tickets to Scotland." "What does this card say, Jack?" asked Susie. "It says, 'Dear Susie, Jack and Amy.'" Can you read it in a normal voice, please? Not a stupid one. Okay. "Dear Susie, Jack and Amy, I was wondering if you might want to come to Scotland for Christmas and spend it with me. You don't have to, but if you do, some rail tickets are enclosed. Love, Dad." He looked up and for once his eyes were like a child's, full of wonder. "Yes," said Amy, "let's do it." "Amy," said Susie, "I'm not sure." "Mum, you cannot say no to me." "What? Why not?" Amy laughed. "Because I'm disabled," she said. Chapter 70. I've got this. It was an overnight train. The three of them had a cabin which they could sleep in. They left on Christmas Eve, which when they arrived really early in the morning in Scotland, it was Christmas Day. Peter was at the station to pick them up. He was driving a vehicle none of them had seen before. "Happy Christmas, family," he said, getting out and hugging Amy. "Hey, Dad," said Amy, "you bought a version of Mum's van." "A slightly newer version," said Susie. "I did," said Peter, pressing the button at the back to extend the ramp. "I thought if Amy was coming to be seeing me here a bit more often, I'd better have something to drive you round in." Amy's eyes widened. "Am I going to be coming to see you a bit more often then?" Peter smiled. "I hope so, but it's up to you." He put his hands on the handles at the back of her chair, as if he was going to push her up the ramp, but Amy said, "It's okay, Dad. I've got this," and wheeled herself up into the van. Chapter 71. The biggest present ever. They drove away from the railway station. Amy and Jack in the back of the van watched their mum and dad, who were sitting together in the front. They weren't speaking, but it didn't seem like a bad not speaking, more a not sure what to say yet type of not speaking. But then Susie did say something. "Where are we going? I thought you lived in the city centre." "I do. Sorry, I just wanted to show you all something before we got to my house." Amy looked out of the window. It had clearly been snowing for a while, as all the roads and houses were covered in white. But still, something about where they were felt familiar. "Dad," she said, "are we going to the facility?" "Maybe," he replied. 20 minutes later, as they were standing, Amy sitting in her chair, obviously, outside the facility, Jack said, "Not sure why you said maybe. We just were." Peter looked at Susie and Amy. "Is this what he's like all the time?" They nodded. "Okay," said Peter. "But actually, Peter," said Susie, "I think we and the kids would like to maybe get to your house to start Christmas properly." "Yes, I know, and I've got presents for Jack and for you, Susie." "Have you?" said Susie, surprised. "Yeah, under my tree, waiting." "At least we don't have to decorate that one," said Jack. "But," said Peter, ignoring that, "Amy's Christmas present is here." He turned towards the doors of the facility, which opened wide. Standing there was something enormous under a lot of wrapping paper. It looked like the biggest present ever. "Oh, wow!" said Amy. "Shall I go over and unwrap it?" Her dad smiled. "I'm hoping it will unwrap for you." There was a pause. Then he turned towards the present and said more loudly, "I said, I'm hoping it will unwrap for you." An engine sound was heard, starting up. Then, seconds later, the wrapping paper burst open and out it drove, the Taylor Turbochaser. Chapter 72. Where would you like to go today? Only it wasn't exactly the Taylor Turbochaser. But it had been given an amazing upgrade. It was no longer built with fish tanks and cap flaps and bang together trays and chimneys and wheelchairs. It was built with real car materials, aluminium and glass and steel. It was shiny and bullet grey and sleek and streamlined. But the basic design was still the same. It still looked like the Taylor Turbochaser. "Happy Christmas, Amy," said her dad. "Wow," said Amy, "the Taylor Turbochaser Mark II." "Exactly. It even says so on the number plate." Which it did. The words TAYTURB2 became clearer as the vehicle got closer and then stopped in front of Amy in her chair. A driver in a helmet got out. He took the helmet off and Amy recognised him as one of the drivers who'd been on the track that day 2 months before. He smiled at her and handed her the helmet. "So here's the thing, Amy," said her dad. "This is your Christmas present. It's your car. It does come with one very specific condition, which is you can't drive it on public roads. You certainly can't drive it out of here and all the way back home, or the other way round." "Okay," said Amy, "so when can I drive it?" "Whenever you visit me, you can come here and drive it on the track, and I will make sure the track is clear for you. Or maybe even organise some of my people to drive against you. You know, can give them quite a race." "Wow, thanks, Dad. Mum, can I come and see Dad a lot?" Susie looked at Peter and then at Amy and smiled. "We'll see." "Yes, maybe," Peter smiled back. "But meanwhile," said Amy, "can I have a go now?" "Can I have a go now?" said Jack. "Jack," said Susie, "I've told you about..." "No, I mean it. I wasn't being sarcastic. If Amy's going to go and have a go now, well, I want to have a go too." "Not just you, Jack," said Amy. "As far as I remember, the Taylor Turbochaser's got 4 seats, hasn't it?" Peter looked at Susie and Susie shrugged. Peter looked round at his driver, who had already gone to get 3 more helmets. Then the whole family got into the Turbochaser. It was amazing inside. The seats are all black and comfortable, and there are electric windows and heaters and even a screen on the dashboard. But the main driving seat was still designed as if it were a wheelchair. It had the same driving controls and all the buttons were the same. "I've built it around your original chair," said Peter, "the Mobilecon. It's still there, your chair, at the heart of the Turbochaser." "Wow! Although no sat-nav?" "Try the screen." Amy raised her eyebrows. She tapped on the screen and a sat-nav logo on a map came up glowing, accompanied by a little musical sting. "Hello, Amy," it said. "I've programmed it to say that," Peter said. "Let's hope it will hit it." But not that," said Peter. "That's weird." "It's Welsh," said Amy. "How do you know that?" said Susie. Amy smiled and punched at the sat-nav. It said, "I mean, where would you like to go today?" Everyone looked at Amy. She didn't even have to think. "To the racetrack," she said. "Very well," said the sat-nav. "Turn left and then just drive." "Oh, I will," said Amy, and she threw the direction lever forward. The rest of the family were thrown back in their chairs and the Turbochaser Mark II sounded. It sounded, well, like the devil clearing its throat. And down they went, down the hill towards the track, Amy's hands gripping the wheel, and she flew. She flew. And that's the end of Taylor Turbochaser. I hope you really enjoyed listening to each of the chapters read by all the staff. Maybe look out for the next book coming soon.